Hey guys, time for a look at Lost World. This game came out 2 years after Sonic Generations, and the Sonic team decided to change up the gameplay style, offering something new. Let's see how that worked out. The main change is Sonic's top speed, which is a lot slower, and the addition of a run button. Now that's something new. Sonic doesn't accelerate naturally and he needs the press of a button and has two set speed modes, the walking mode and the running mode. Nothing in between. While that may be a smart idea for platformers in general, even Mario has a run button in the recent iterations, it's something that doesn't really fit Sonic. One thing that you're going to read a lot on the internet is Sonic's all about speed. I say no to that. Sonic's not about speed. Sonic's about acceleration. Let me explain. The main idea behind the classic games was momentum-based platforming. Some concept arts have been released lately regarding the Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 development, and they really show that every single item, gimmick, terrain shape was built with flow and acceleration in mind. In the first two games, Sonic's running speed has a cap. The only way you could break that cap and accelerate further was by rolling on a downward slope. Not to mention that going from standing still to full speed was pretty different than in the modern games. Speed was something you really had to earn and keep, not something that was a given, and that was the fun part, at least for me. Going back to Lost World, we said that Sonic has two set speed caps, walking mode and running mode. That's actually inaccurate. Lost World has three speed caps, one for walking mode and two for running mode. While going towards or away from the screen, Sonic runs faster and has a certain speed cap. While running left or right, so basically in every 2D stage too, Sonic runs slower and he has a different speed cap. I imagine the reason for that is building slow 2D levels about careful blocky platforming, and it kinda works since Sonic's not so hard to control as he was in Colors, for example. The level design itself is similar to Colors, but the character controls better and the way it moves finally fits the level design they went for. Now, while that's an obvious improvement over Colors, is that the right way to achieve what they were going for? And the answer to that is no. The different speed cap is alienating. It takes a long time to get used to and it makes for clunky controls in the 3D sections. I could never wrap my head around on how this decision even left the design table. There's a reason other games don't do that. Mario 3D Land and World have platforming in both 2D and 3D, but what they did is not giving the character different speed caps. They restricted movement to 8 directions so that it's harder to screw up the jumps. It's not the best workaround either, but it surely works better than what's in Lost World. Parkour is a new mechanic too, but hidden springs often come up, making any attempt at parkouring pretty much useless. Sonic has a spin dash too, which is this game's boost equivalent. Not much to say about it actually, it's useful in a couple of occasions, but blasting through the stages using it is not how the game was intended to be played in the first place, therefore it's not fun to play it that way. Let's go back to acceleration. In Lost World, Sonic doesn't interact with slopes in any meaningful way. Since the game is coded with a run button, very strict speed caps and no acceleration in mind, Sonic's speed is always the same whether he's running on flat ground or sloped terrain. No acceleration, no deceleration. The only instances where Sonic looks like he's interacting with sloped terrain are scripted. Frozen Factory Act 4, for example, has Sonic sliding on icy terrain and the only way to even clear the level is by hitting the boost pad. Why is that? Because the scripted event that follows fakes Sonic's acceleration and sends him flying to the next platform. If you skip the boost pad, Sonic can't accelerate by himself and falls to his doom. Loops. Before every single loop, there's a boost pad. Why is that? Because since Sonic has no acceleration, it just looks wrong when running through a loop. Sonic 2006, kind of wrong. No deceleration while going up, no acceleration while going down. Something funny I found out while recording footage is that when you approach a loop, or any slope for that matter, Without pressing the run button, Sonic gets pushed back, as if he's reacting to gravity and slopes. I thought that was because of the game's physics at first. Guess what? It's a scripted event. You lose control of the character while it happens, and you can't jump, you can't turn around. It's scripted, and it's something that really made me lose it. I mean, how could that be okay in any game? It's not okay in a Sonic game, but it wouldn't be okay in any other game. Platformers should be about characters that are fun to move around, that feel good to control. Every Mario game controls like a dream. The latest Donkey Kong Country iterations, while different from the original games, control great, have great level design and capture the spirit of the original while being modern games. Why can't Sonic do that? It sucks, especially because for the first time in a very long time, this game had slopes in the 3D sections that were not scripted, or at least were not scripted if you skipped the boost pads and springs that you were supposed to hit. Let me show you that. Usually it would go like this. But why does the game need to take away control from the player when it would work just fine otherwise? Imagine the game being designed with this kind of freedom in mind and rolling physics. Well, that would be good. This goes for every slope in the game. There are some that have no boost pads, for example, but the outcome is always the same since Sonic's speed is capped, no acceleration, remember? The ones in Desert Ruins Act 1, for example. Outside of that, the 3D sections are mostly flat terrain with some enemies, nothing worth of note. The 2D sections, on the other hand, are very similar to what Colors had to offer, as I said before. If you watched my Sonic Colors level design analysis, you already know I think that's not a good thing. Sonic Colors and consequently Sonic Lost World do not feel like Sonic games at their core. If we have to consider two different iterations of Sonic, classic and modern, classic being built around momentum and acceleration, modern being built around speed, Sonic Colors and Lost World don't fall anywhere in or between those categories. Let's have a look at a section from a level map for a Sonic Colors 2D level, for example. Tropical Resort Act 2. See how flat that is? How boring it looks, how linear it is? Sure, it's the first world, but it's not like the later levels are any different. Let's take a look at a 2D level from Sonic Lost World, but since I don't have access to level maps for that game, I'll show a video footage. Now let's take a look at the level map from Green Hill Act 1, the very first level in the very first game in the series, and the classic game with the most linear level design. See how that compares? The original Green Hill has many slopes with which the character can interact, it has different pathways, it's not blocky, and it makes use of momentum-based gimmicks. What's left of that in both Colors and Lost World? Well, if you ask me, nothing. And the high-speed action that the boost games provide is missing too. If Sonic's all about momentum-based platforming, these two games don't allow for that. If Sonic's all about speed, these two games won't allow for that either. So, if you approach both games as generic platformers and not as Sonic games, they're competent enough. They're polished, finished products, just not good Sonic games, and they're not the right direction for the franchise to go in. There are a couple of gimmicky levels in this game that are not worth mentioning, but spoiler alert, they're bad. There are just two things left to talk about, the Tubular level design and the Rails levels. The Tubular level design is nothing but a gimmick, since the game doesn't actually make use of it in a clever way. It's just an excuse for different branching paths easily accessible at any moment, and that's proven by completely flat levels that are present in the game, like Desert Ruins Act 1 and Frozen Factory Act 3. The Rails levels take a lot of clues from Donkey Kong Country, and while they may be cheap on the difficulty side, I thought they were fun enough. At least they managed to make the Rails sections interesting, and I'd say throw some momentum in there and you have something nice going on, if Rails really have to be a thing in Sonic games. As always, thank you for watching and thank you for subscribing. Leave a comment below to let me know what you think about Lost World and the modern Sonic games in general. If you have any requests, just send me a message or leave me a comment. Until next time, see ya!